Welcome to Unit 6. You may not have thought of it in that way, but Unit 5 ended on a cliffhanger. Over the course of Unit 5, you had followed the history of the Romans from a tiny village on the river Tiber to one of the largest empires the world had ever known. But as you learned, at the end, that empire collapsed. So in this unit, you get to learn what happened next. What happened to all of the massive territory that the Roman Empire used to control after this empire ceased to exist? By way of review, let us pause for a minute as you reflect, or maybe pull out the map in your textbook, to consider this question. What were the limits of the Roman Empire at its height? Also, in preparation for this unit, consider this question. What might be the short-term and long-term consequences of the collapse of an empire? It is only, perhaps in contemplating the aftermath of the collapse of the Roman Empire, that we can truly appreciate just how massive an enterprise it had been. And initially, in some ways it continued. As you can see from this map, the Western Roman Empire, overrun by various barbarian tribes, became divided into quite a number of smaller kingdoms. Ultimately, this territory will coalesce into what we know as Europe. But the Eastern Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire and carried on the bureaucratic and government structure of the former Roman Empire. Albeit, the official language of this empire was not Latin, but Greek. Furthermore, its form of Christianity will, over time, become distinct from the Catholicism of the West. One of the biggest differences in the Byzantine Christianity, which will eventually become a defining feature of the Orthodox Church, is the use of icons, that is, images of Christ, Mary, and the saints, in worship. And yet, as we look at the aftermath of the collapse of the Roman Empire, and at those who stepped into that power void, our picture will be incomplete without a consideration of new power that came into the picture in the 7th century CE. That power is the Islamic Caliphates. Originating in the Arabian Peninsula, south and southeast of the Byzantine Empire, the Islamic Caliphates put increasing pressure on the Byzantine Empire over the next several centuries. By 1095 CE, this pressure, feared by the European kingdoms as well, was an important factor that led to the First Crusade. To jump forward a bit, in 1453 CE, Constantinople will fall after a prolonged siege to the Islamic Ottoman Empire and will be renamed Istanbul. That moment, in the eyes of some historians, marks the real end of the Roman Empire, as it marks the end of the Roman Empire in the East. At this point in the class, it is probably not necessary to comment much on your quiz for this unit. Just remember, your quiz is on the textbook, so be sure to read the material carefully before attempting. Your discussion assignment will allow you to investigate the Abbasid Caliphate in more detail. As you can see from the map, the Abbasids were an impressive empire, and their rule was a period of literary and artistic flourishing. You have likely heard of the 1001 Nights, from which we get the stories of Aladdin and Sinbad. Baghdad, under the Abbasid Caliphate, was when the 1001 Nights began, although the stories of Aladdin and Sinbad in particular likely came about later. Finally, if your instructor assigns you the paper for this unit, you will get to consider the First Crusade in greater detail through a variety of primary sources. If you are writing this paper, please remember to research the authors of the sources about which you are writing, as the different authors' perspectives influence their perception of the Crusade.